Ready? Okay. Good morning and welcome to the Wednesday, November 15, 2023 Lextran Board of Directors meeting. My name is Norma Zamora and I am serving as the interim general manager for Lextran. I will turn over the meeting to our chair, Harding Dowell.
Thank you, Norma. We will call this meeting to order and we will call the roll. Ms. Rogers, I see, is absent. Ms. Morehouse-Gonzalez? Lady, if we could have you off the phone. Okay. Lady, are you here?
I'm here.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
one of those crazy days.
That's all right. Mr. Ward is absent. Mr. Schoninger? Judge Thurston?
Present.
Dr. Capo is absent. Mr. Motley is absent. We do not have a quorum at the moment, so we will not be able to act on action items unless we have members join us late. So we cannot approve the minutes, but we do have an opportunity for public comment. Is there any public comment on agenda items? Seeing none, we will bypass the approval of meeting minutes to the chair's report. The only thing I have to report is that we have received a set of finalists for the general manager position, which we're pleased about. TransDev has done an exhaustive search and we're pleased with the outcomes. I'll be sharing more information about finalists with board members for the interview process to begin soon. We'll move on to the monthly performance report and financials. Brett.
Well, good morning. Thank you. Happy to report our monthly performance report for October. Our mission statement: we serve people in our community with mobility solutions. I'd like to first pause and welcome Mr. Randolph Williams, our Assistant General Manager. Randolph joins us from several different properties that he's worked at over the years in both paratransit and fixed route operations. He has a wealth of knowledge. He's done a wonderful job getting to know the team. This is week number 2. Number 2. Very, very happy that Randolph is here and happy to have you with us moving forward. So welcome, Randolph.
Thank you.
So some highlights from last month. We completed 2 audits. First of our National Transit Database submission and our FTA drug and alcohol program. You'll hear more information about both of those moving forward. We provided our service to the Keeneland Fall Meet. We held our annual Health and Wellness Fair here at the Operators Lounge on October 11th. Myself and Emily Elliott, our Community Relations Manager, attended the Build Microtransit Information Session, and we had a month-long fundraiser for the Marquis Cancer Center for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Our commendations for the month, all from bus operators. There are 7 here. Eamon Farouk, Mildred Hunt, Colin Allen, Jordan Anderson, LJ Hasty, John Bonziglia, and Sierra Johnson all had commendations for the month, so kudos to our operators. And to jump into ridership, we were at about 380,000 in October. That's only a couple of hundred trips away from where we were in September, so it's a sort of a flat from September to October. We are still ahead of our monthly average and where we were last year. Some of those underlying metrics did sort of slow down from what we saw in September, and that's kind of continuing on the conversation as we had talked through the budget process and through the summer, that perhaps maybe leading into the spring semester on campus, some of the ridership growth that we've seen might slow down. Still a very strong very strong month, and we look forward to seeing how it plays out in November. On paratransit, there was about 14,500 trips. You see a divergence here in our previous year because October of 2022 was the first month that our ATP Dev operated the service. So some of our KPIs, even the customer comment KPIs in the board packet, you'll see compared to where we were last year, that causes a bit of a difficult comparison because that was that first month of the transition. So be mindful of that as you read through the board packet. Our productivity for the month, again, 383,000 trips on fixed route, about 14,500 on paratransit. We're ahead about 200,000 trips year to date on fixed route. Pretty flat on paratransit year to date. Revenue miles and hours come out about what you would expect, and then our productivity metrics are looking good this month again as well. For safety, 1 preventable accident on fixed route, 2 on paratransit. So those rates are looking pretty strong so far this year. One workers' compensation claim leading to 2 days of lost time, so those metrics are looking pretty good this year as well too. On maintenance, over 13,000 miles between roll calls and a perfect 62 of 62 on their preventive maintenance inspections in October. So I'll pause there on the performance report. Happy to answer any questions. If there are none, I'll pass it on to Nikki for the financials.
So Fred, I note that our paratransit on-time performance is still hovering in the 60s. I know that there was some sort of what I'll call data hygiene issues. Have we worked through those? Do we feel like we're going to be in a position to revise some of these historical numbers or numbers going forward?
I do want to revise the historical numbers and make sure that what we have going forward is based on what we see in the contract that we have RTP Dev. I wanted to have that as part of the KPI updates for this month. I don't think we're quite there yet. As we started to look into how the system was reporting things, it was sort of a rabbit hole. And some steps were taken to rectify that. EcoLane, which is RATP Dev's sort of scheduling and a paratransit contractor, they're going to be here in Lexington in December. We're going to sit down with them, go through the contract, and make sure that system is set up exactly the way our contract is set up. We've got Randolph here, who has the depth of paratransit knowledge that's already been of value to make sure that we are reporting to you the metrics that you need to properly evaluate the service. I don't feel like we're there yet for on-time performance. I do have some updates on ridership in the KPI update a little later on, but we'll keep you posted as that moves forward.
Thank you. Any questions from our remote joining members? No. Thanks, Fred. Nikki, financials.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We are looking at the financials through October, which is the fourth month of the fiscal year. We are still steady right now on our operating cash. We do have some grants to be reimbursed for, but that's nothing unusual for this time of year. Everything else on the balance sheet is pretty ordinary, but I'll be glad to answer any questions. Okay, we'll go on to the statement of revenue and expenses. Property taxes are still looking good. We've had almost $500,000 through October. We've collected more in November. We're hoping in the next few weeks we'll have our big deposit that we usually have in November or December. The budget is based basically on the percentage that we received last year. So it's a little bit under budget, but nothing to be worried about. Our passenger revenue is looking good. We're a little over budget. As Fred said, the ridership is looking good. Federal and state funds, that's just a timing thing, so nothing to worry about there. Our wages, we are still under budget at this time. Fringe benefits are looking good. Professional services, if you remember, part of that's our contract maintenance. So we will be working on, we have some vendors that have some of our buses. So you'll see some of those costs come in the next couple months. Diesel is looking good at this time. The monthly average was $3.19 and our year-to-date is $3.05. So we're watching that daily and we're happy to see that that's not moving drastically. Our CNG, which is fuel other, that is running right along budget, so we're happy with that. Our paratransit expenses are about $96,000 over. We knew that it was going to be hard to estimate this year what we were going to spend, so while it's a little over budget, I'm glad it's not at a huge amount over budget. So we are a little bit over where we were last year when they took over, when RATP Dev took over, and that's also got to do with ridership. Our van pool services, this was the last month for our van pool services. We will be able to use the money that was budgeted for van pool. We'll be able to use what was left over towards paratransit. So that'll give us a little bit more money in that category. But everything else is looking pretty good. We're very pleased that our CNG diesel gallon equivalent is staying around $1.31. So we like to see that, but I'll be glad to answer any questions.
How are we doing? I'm always reminded that when we're under budget on wages, it's typically because we may not have a full complement of employees. How is, and I apologize, it's probably in here, I just didn't look closely enough. How are we doing on our hiring efforts right now?
We are doing the best we can. We've had some issues with some no-shows that, you know, it's typical now. We've had 18 interviews in the last 2 weeks, so we have a few candidates. The people are still applying, and we're still trying to get people interviewed as fast as we can. We have a new class that starts on November 27th, so we're excited about them starting. Most of what we've seen, because we have to have a medical examiner certificate and drug screening and also criminal background check. Sometimes a few people get weeded out for those reasons. But we are trying to think of new recruitment efforts. We've been working hard with John's team on recruitment and trying to think of some new avenues. So hopefully hiring slows down this time of year because of the holidays, but we're hoping to start out with new ideas, maybe a new hiring campaign, maybe the first of the year. So,
How many in the new class coming up on
right now, I think we have 4 to 5. She still has a few interviews to do. We have a couple of maintenance people in that class, so that's really good.
Good. Thanks, Nick.
Welcome.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Hi, Nikki, I'm glad you're
Hello.
feeling better the last time you were
Thank
here
you.
into the weather. I'm glad you're feeling better. Question or point of clarification on the fuel. Does that include our paratransit fuel?
No. The paratransit fuel is considered under the paratransit expenses.
Okay.
So paratransit
And
paratransit expenses would be the fuel, the paratransit assessments, and also the cost for RATP Dev.
okay, gotcha. I thought that was the case, but I just wanted to be clear on that.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions?
Do we pay their fuel cost as a separate line item, or is that included in the per ride fee?
It's a separate line item. We have a contract with the fuel vendor.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Nikki.
Welcome.
Okay. As noted, we don't have a quorum, so we'll have to move past the action items, and we will catch those either later in the meeting or next month if needed. I did not see a change order report, is that correct?
Right.
No change order report, so we'll move on to old business, the 2023 KPI update. Mr. Collins.
Thank you, and I just want to let everyone know, I practiced a lot of restraint in putting this slideshow together. I could have turned this into like a weekend summit on just ridership numbers. So every year, as part of our National Transit Database submission, we go back through our APC counts, which is automatic passenger counts that we have on board each vehicle, and evaluate for accuracy and completeness. Last year, fiscal year 23, the total adjustment that we made was 1.8%. Fiscal year 22 was 2.15%. That is a pretty strong number. The range that I've seen since I've been here is like negative 0.5% all the way to about 4%. So anything sort of in there is pretty good. Total of 3.5 million trips. The only change there was 62,000 trips. So our APC program, I think, worked pretty well last fiscal year. But what you see in your board packet every month is the APC ridership. So that's the unaudited raw data that we pull straight out of the APCs. This hopefully will give you some faith and trust that what you're seeing as those ridership reports are pretty close to reality. So then if you look at the percent change from fiscal year 22 to 23, 26.6%. So that was the actual ridership growth between the 2 years. So I've got a little bit more in-depth as to where that came from. We had a question from Mr. Ward last month about growth around campus. I've broken that down into service classifications. Our core service routes 1 through 13 are those routes that connect in downtown, that have the 35 to 70 minute frequencies. That's what really is the backbone of our service. UK service routes 14, 15, and 27. Two of those, routes 14 and 27, are the contractual routes that we have with our contract with UK, and Route 15 is Red Mile. That's something that we provide, but it is very much a campus housing shuttle over towards campus. The connectors, Route 17 and 18, that's the North Side connector and Center Parkway connector. Those do not come to the transit center. That's more coverage routes, along with our limited service, also more coverage routes. They have the higher frequencies or longer frequencies, Route 16, 22, 24, and then the combo not routes 51, 52, 58, and 59. So that was a mouthful, but about 95% of our trips come from the first two classifications, the core service and the UK service. Growth at UK, 42.5%. Growth in the core service, 21.1%. The least or the slowest growing category was limited service at 17%. Those are really strong ridership returns. To take that even a step further and look, top 5 routes, bottom 5 routes, the fastest growing routes, Route 27, which is UK Yellow, that was nearly 70%. Some of that was because there's extra service this fiscal year as it was last fiscal year. I think one of the surprises here is Route 12, Leestown Road, at nearly 43%. But there's really a good mix here. So of the top 5, 2 are UK routes, 2 are core routes, and then 1 connector route in terms of percent change. And then our bottom 5 routes, which is the slowest growing, Route 1 Woodhill was the slowest at 8%, which is still, year over year, that's a really strong ridership growth. But we had, again, a mix here. 3 of those were limited service routes. Again, that's more coverage. And 2 were core routes, North Limestone and Woodhill. So
Right,
I think
it might help, I know it would help me.
Sure.
To define what you mean by a coverage route.
So think of frequency is king in transit, right? If we could have 5 to 10 minute frequency on something like Nicholasville Road, that's going to drive more people to use the bus. However, there's always this balance between frequency and coverage because people live all sorts of different places. How do we reach those people as well? I mean, they need some sort of service too. Our limited service routes are more of those coverage routes. Old Frankfort Pike is a great example, Route 24. That's the one that serves the jail. It's peak periods only, 70-minute frequencies, so it's not quite as robust as what you would see on core service. So the elasticities of who uses those services is a much more inelastic user.
Got it.
You can think of longer wait times for a bus, harder to schedule your trip with a bus, that kind of thing. But there is some service there. So to take another step back and look across all of our routes in terms of, I think this chart really puts it in perspective. Route 14 and 15, those are the 2 main campus routes, how that jumps out in terms of production. Again, this is total trip production. This is not looking at trips per hour, or trips per mile, or anything like that. That would sort of standardize everything, but just total production. The core service 1 through 13, 14, 15, and 27 on campus, and then our more coverage routes. You see, everything grew, but you just don't have the same productivity on those routes as you do on the core service.
You mentioned that we added service to Route 14. What was the nature of the change?
That was Route 27. It was Sunday that we added this fiscal year.
During the move-in time.
During moving time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like 3 days to help students move into the campus housing there. So we added 3 days to that.
Gotcha. So the growth in 14 is just
Sheer growth in 14.
straight
Yes.
up growth. Got it. Same route, same stops.
Yep, same number. We've had the same number of buses on 14, both fiscal year 22 and 23. The largest freshman class in UK history, which I think they're going to try to do again next semester. So maybe we'll get another jump out of this too. But I think this puts in perspective of how important Route 14 is to the system, and you know, up to 800,000 trips. That's pretty impressive. So then I have the one slide on paratransit ridership adjustments. Again, back to the conversation on EcoLane, how it captures events in the field. We need to clarify to make sure that everything, you know, we're all talking about the same KPI, the same data point. In the NTD, the definition includes personal care attendants, companions, and children as unlinked passenger trips under the National Transit Database. That's what we want to report because that's the number of people we're actually moving. Some of the other reporting might include no-shows. So if a vehicle goes to pick someone up and they say, well, I don't want to take the trip anymore, the trip doesn't happen in terms of the NTD, but the vehicle actually did go there and an attempt was made to make the trip. So that is not movement of people, so that's not exactly what's going to be shown in the board packet. Still another metric that we need to track because it's important for operations and other reasons. But just to kind of clean things up, to make sure that everyone understands what's in the board packet, it is going to be moving forward the National Transit Database definition, so unlinked passenger trips, that is going to include personal care attendants, companions, and children. And this is sort of the difference in what was in the board packet, what went to the NTD, and so moving forward, you see the last few months we've gotten it correctly. So in total, in sum, there was about 3,000 trips that would change from last fiscal year to about 155,000 trips total. So moving forward, we hope that our ridership, what we share in the board packet, is going to be this unlinked passenger trips as defined by the NTD.
And do we pay our ATP dev for a no-show?
If
Their
the
vehicle
vehicle
goes,
goes,
so it doesn't pick anybody up? We did?
yes.
Okay. So discounts since they didn't finish the other half?
Unfortunately not. But that gets to the point of, you know, we're having these conversations about no-shows. How do we manage no-shows? What do we need to reduce the number of no-shows? Because we're seeing a real problem in the service. And we have some ideas that we're working on that we'll share with the board later on once we sort of finalize and crystallize some things of communications and outreach. Again, based on the rider guide that we talked about a couple of months ago, to get everybody on the same page, to make sure everybody understands the policies and procedures, and to try to help clean some of this up. Because we think if we do that, that will help the cascading effect of on-time performance, because if your first trip in the morning starts off on the wrong foot, then everything subsequent to that trip can also be affected.
Got it.
Any other questions? And again, I really, this is me restraining of how much
Your restraint is
That's
appreciated.
it.
data talk that I really want to do. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Fred. Any new business? Did not see.
No.
And then looking ahead to proposed agenda items, we have a resolution on deferred compensation and an updated joinder agreement. What does an updated joinder agreement mean?
No, I'll have Nikki talk to that.
That one is our Kentucky deferred comp for our pension plan.
Okay.
And it is an agreement. I'll have Addison help me with this. She's helped me with it. It's an agreement. We've had it on the agenda for a while because we have to name the general manager in it. So that's why it's been on the agenda for so long. But it's an agreement with the Kentucky deferred comp. But if Addison can explain a little bit more about what it is.
It's just, excuse me, it's just, like you said, they need someone to be the person in charge, and I guess we're waiting on a general manager to be named, and that's about it.
Yeah, they do it. They do an audit of their records over so many years, and they hadn't done ours for a while. And when they decided to do it was when we were without a general manager.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it. And then intelligent transportation systems, is that an RFP that?
Yeah, that staff is currently doing interviews and evaluating vendors that bid on that contract. on that RFP. They're going to be going to observe a system later today, and we should be ready to present to the board a resolution next month on the direction that we're going to move with that.
Okay. I see no need for closed session today. I will remind our board members, I appreciate those of you who joined today. We really do need to move through these resolutions on paratransit eligibility and drug and alcohol policy. So if at all possible, please do plan to attend next month's meeting so that we can do the business that we are here to do. Thanks so much, everybody. We stand adjourned.